Okay, well, we'll go live and we'll see what's going to happen. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. Dear, bit of a funny stream start. Apologies for being late, but I have updated my PC today to Windows 10, and odd things happening. So things like HexChat didn't want to remember where it was, or what it was configured as. Edge works rather nice, but then refused on the second attempt to pop out a window, and all in all it got really rather confused. Just there. So I've got Edge, Chrome and Internet Explorer, all three running at the moment, which is decidedly odd. Well, felt decidedly odd when I was trying to do it. I'm putting grey in for the rails. I'm going to put some smoke in and then grass and things like that. Okay. Trying to work out what on earth I'm doing. I thought I was just going to start the stream up as normal. It didn't quite work out that way. And of course Edge doesn't run add-ons, so better Twitch TV didn't work on there, which of course is something I'm used to, so that's why I had to run up Chrome. Ah well. Get there in the end, sort of, maybe, kind of. Oh dear, do not want to do that. I need to pick this up without moving my chair. And I'll put in the big camera down at what I'm doing in a minute, because I've just realised I haven't moved that from last night either. Dear. But on the positive side, I have updated to Windows 10. Also on the positive side, it went really well. Well, it went without a problem. And I quite like it. Windows 10. Don't quite like the start menu. I like either the, at the moment, it'll take a bit of getting used to. And a couple of things I have installed didn't appear on the start menu, which is really confusing. But I think I like either Windows 7 or Windows 8 start menus. I'm not that keen on Windows 10 menu so far. It's kind of tiny and doesn't have much on it, and yeah, so far not my favourite. I'll get used to it. 1, 2, 3. Let's see if I move my keyboard out of the way and then move this Thank you very much, Walter Feetstein. Or Feetson. Not quite sure why that mutant. Yeah. Okay, so all I've been talking about since I started this, and thank you for realising that's what was happening, is I had my microphone muted. So it's been somewhat annoying, was that? Apologies for the no sound. I've installed Windows 10 today, and I was OBS started okay, but I was just somewhat confused tonight because I had things like Better Twitch TV don't work in Edge, which is the new Microsoft browser under Windows 10, and so I was having to start things up in different browsers than I sort of normally would. I'd normally have used Chrome, but I thought I'd try Edge for it, and then it wouldn't do certain things, like it wouldn't pop out Windows for some reason, or rather it did pop out a window but then wouldn't do it again. And so the start of the stream, the stream start window, which I normally use, the microphone was running, but obviously the stream window, the microphone was muted, which usually it's the other way around. I don't know. So, kind of all over the place today, or this evening. And of course, because it's an updated operating system, all the logins that were sort of all the things like Twitch alerts, which I use, which normally knows about me, had to log into, and all sorts of things. And I was just going on about how Cortana doesn't recognises things like the Microsoft programs quite easily, but ask her to launch something like Factorio, and kept taking me to web pages, and it got quite frustrating in a way. Now then, this is right, I want to be on that side. Okay, just working out which side of the line I need to be on here. Taking this bit slow because I'm sculpting this edge, which is basically means I'm adjusting the depth of the needle, in order that it'll create loops of a different length on the other side, so the edges will have a nice rounded edge. But it's a little bit fiddly when you're working against the edge of a hoop like this, just to get the needle in the right place. Which I think I've managed to do now. So but thank you for your patience, Walter Feetson. That was most kind of you. Welcome to the studio, by the way. Well, hopefully things will settle down for the rest of the stream, and everything will go kind of nicely. I'm not anticipating any problems with Windows 10, but that's the thing that worries me a little bit. But there again, I had no choice at some point but to do that, so might as well do it sooner rather than later. In fact, what I was just mentioning before I was reminded that my microphone was muted again. I was just going on about the start menu on Windows 10, which I'm not quite sure if I like. I kind of prefer either Windows 8 start menu or Windows 7, but not quite Windows 10's. It's kind of a tiny menu. I shall have to see what, because it's in two parts, I shall have to see what you can do with the right hand side. If it's anything like the Windows 8 stuff, so, you know, you couldn't just create tiles to go there, so I don't think there's anything on the default menu on the right hand side that is anything I'm interested in, so I'm going to end up scrolling all the time or not using it at all. But I'll have to play with that and see. So one of the things I did mention was that this camera is looking the right way up at this piece, but of course because you're on the other side of the desk to me at the moment, it looks like the thing's upside down. But as I do sort of frequently turn this around all sorts of ways, I didn't think it'd be too much of a problem, but if people would prefer me to flip the camera over, I can do that. Okay, so there's that bit of the railhead done. I'm just going to go down this side underneath all the wheels. It'll kind of be a little bit fit. Actually, it won't be too bad thinking about it. I might be able to even do it in one go. No, I can't. I have to do it in sections. So I'm making the top of the rail which the engine runs on all nice and shiny. We'll make the sides of it rusty. And then we'll put some smoke on coming out the chimney, and then sky and grass around the locomotive. Not sure yet whether I want to try and make it look as though it might be in motion by using some steam, but I might just have it as a, you know, it's stopped, it's static at the moment. Fury Per 7, good evening, welcome to the studio this evening. And at the moment you're actually able to hear me, which will be good. Where's my mouse gone? There we go. Sorry, I'm still trying to get used to so how is Windows 10? Not bad. Installed nice and cleanly. Well, easily anyway. I don't know about cleanly. Isn't apart from the look of the slightly different look to icons, but there again, that's kind of just theming. A little bit of a slightly different layout, but apart from that, there's not a lot of difference. The main difference you notice is on the start menu, and I'm not quite sure whether I like the start menu or not. As I was just saying earlier, it's at the moment I prefer either the Windows 7 or the Windows 8 menu over the Windows 10 one that I've seen so far. I don't particularly find the Windows 10 one easy to use. I don't know if there's kind of live tiles on the right hand side of the menu, and I don't know if I can actually put my own applications into there, because you couldn't always do that on Windows 8. A lot of the stuff wouldn't just wouldn't create a tile. So and at this moment in time I can't see if there's any ability to have like favourite applications like you did with Windows 7 or even Windows 8 for that matter. So I'm not altogether sure. It's a great menu, but apart from that, we'll see. Everything else, about the only thing that didn't work first time was the connection to my server, so I had to reinstall the software. It sort of, actually the backup element of that didn't come up, everything else did. And Cortana has proved interesting. And so there's some real funny quirks in a way, because things like you can ask her where you are, and she's extremely precise and accurate in telling me where I am. So if I ask for what the weather's like where I am, I get the weather in London. She's kind of like, but you know where I am, why are you giving me the weather in London? And yet you can ask her for the weather in a town, like, I don't know, weather in Doncaster, and she'll give you it. It's kind of like, why can't you work out where I am? And then there's other things that are just as slightly annoying. I mean, OBS, for example. If I say anything about OBS, she immediately thinks it's LBS. Okay, could be my accent, but then she can't find it, so she gives it to the browser, because of course it's not OBS, it's Open Broadcaster software, and she can't understand Factorio, so she keeps taking me to the web to Factoria, which to me sounds completely different. But that's kind of like normal voice recognition issues, and it took a bit to get her to use. Actually, I'll turn that microphone around a bit. It took a bit of getting her to use this microphone that the Rode microphone I've got in front of me. She kept wanting to use the one on the webcam, so that took a bit of doing, but. Oh, sort of like a built-in what do you call it? I've forgotten what the sharing app is. I know what you mean though. Oh yeah, true, nothing is ever free. Some things that are behind it is it will get everybody to update, so they'll get rid of older versions a lot quicker, so they don't have to support older versions. That'll save them a heck of a lot of money. The updates, most people have machines which have OEM, so the update is locked to that machine. The default browser is Edge, which basically junks all the legacy code for Internet Explorer, and so people will basically use the browser that the machine comes with, if you like, so they'll continue to do so. So that immediately junks Windows 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. So basically they make their saving probably by not supporting older versions, for the general public anyway, and less code to maintain is cheaper. They also save a heck of a lot on advertising. I mean, I think by today something like about 3 million people have downloaded or installed it. But it's kind of the other thing that's that'll be behind it, for example, is Linux is a free operating system. The Google one, what's it called? I've forgotten. But the Google operating system is free, and Apple give updates away free to OS X. So you know, they're kind of competing in an environment where everything else is kind of free. So to sort of compete with that and get people to install it, they're giving it away. Because once people get used to an operating system, they don't like to swap. So, you know, it's encouraging people that way. I mean, I think the update thing has changed as well, so your machine updates more frequently. So they have better response times to patches and things like that, so I can see all sorts of advantages for them doing it. Do you actually know that for a fact, Fear Reaper? Checked it and looked at the packets, because I notice. I mean, they do tell you when you start it in that it will use your browsing history if you want to use Cortana to do that. Your browsing history. That the space there's. Yeah, I know it's not had a successful backup, thank you. The speech recognition is going to be done mainly by the network, and yeah, it's a search term, so it's sent anyway, like you would do if you typed it. So I think the alert is done locally, if I remember rightly. So for the dev version, possibly it wouldn't surprise me for the dev version. If people are going to report bugs, then it probably would be useful to have the full sequence as to what happened. But even for the dev version, I'd be surprised if they actually did. I mean, I didn't look at the dev version on this one at all. but I can't see any particular reason why they'd choose to do that. I think I don't know, what you sometimes get is the same thing as you get a lot of times, internet scare stories, stuff which people will say without actually knowing to be true, or what they've got is the back end of a misunderstanding. Yeah, you see, okay, headline. Apart from the fact that news sources have to capture you because they want you to read the adverts on their page. So you quite often will get things like that, which if you read the thing actually doesn't say as much as you think it might. But for example, so I'm just 1, 2. When you launch Katana, it does tell you that it will forward your browsing history. As you browse, it will forward that information. It tells you the purpose for it. Okay, whether you believe the purpose or not is a different matter. It tells you that some of the speech recognition would be done by the network, not locally. And some of the stuff that you type into, like the browser bar, for example, or the find, the information that you type in there will be forwarded. Well, by definition, you type, that's keystrokes. So whether or not it sends individual keystrokes or it sends the full search phrase, don't know, but it supports the headline. So I'm kind of say be a bit wary. You know, it's the reason it's like newspapers. They'll always give you the scare story because that gets people to look at the page and read the advert. So I'll look at the adverts. So I'm a bit sceptical of stories like that, to be honest. I'd want to see in the story exactly what it is that they think it's doing, and why they think they weren't told that in the first place. But you know, sometimes that's going to go like that. So that's going to be about there. But anyway, it's like anything else. You take your choice. Yeah, you pay your money, which is free, and take your choice. I mean, I think it's told you precisely that it's going to do that, so it's not like it was hidden. But tech sites, big tech sites, they don't actually strike me with confidence, to be honest. You've always got to, same as with any press, you've got to say, is there a bias in this? Have they forgotten something really obvious, like when they started up, he said, this is what I'm going to do, because that's what it did when I started up Katana. He said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to send this information off, and I'm going to look at things that you type in the notebook thing, or and send that off, and Well, yeah, one or two bits like that. So. And the thing, the other thing about stuff like that is not that it does it, but that people want it to do that because they want the facilities. I mean, you've got Apple have done that with Siri for since it came out. Don't particularly see any people jumping up and down about that. Why? Don't know. But as you say, Windows 7 works. There's nothing wrong with Windows 7. I was running it myself. Not for any particular reason. I could have updated, or I could have chosen to update it to Windows 8, but to be honest, I didn't particularly see any advantage in doing so, so I didn't bother. I had to run Windows 8 on another machine, so yeah. I've not had anything to do with Xbox One, so I've no idea about Xbox One. But any whether I always have a problem with things like, you know, a big organisation has lied. It's kind of like a lot of stuff. A lot of times, people have misinterpreted something, so therefore the big organisation has lied, or somebody has said something which somebody else has interpreted differently, therefore they've lied, and it's. But I don't know anything about the Xbox stuff that you're referring to, so I'm not about to offer anything. It's just I have seen it in a lot of other cases. I read a statement, and I've, you know, let's say because I'm a software developer, I read it one way, whereas the general public read it a different way. So therefore, when, you know, somebody goes, "But it's not that," then the public go, "Well, they've lied." No, you've read it differently. Has anybody lied? I don't know. I don't often think, especially in these days, that people actually go out of their way to do it. Mislead? Yes. Lie? But anyway, who? As you say, pay your money. At some point, you'll be forced to upgrade to Windows 10, I guess, just because you won't be able to get Windows 7 on a brand new machine, but I don't necessarily think you can believe that Windows crashed. A tech site any different to any other site, to be honest. Let's see if this will refresh. Okay, will it? Output stream feed crashed there. It's back. Okay. You can do if you want Fear Reaper, but to be honest, without the full context around it, I'm kind of not in a position to make a judgment. I'll take your word for it. You know, I'm not saying you're being untruthful or anything like that. So, you know, please realise that I am just literally saying I don't. I think everybody's got a different point of view. Gigi Rich, welcome to the studio this evening. And nice to see you back again. How does this tool work? You've never seen it before. And 3D Bloke, hi there, welcome to the studio. Now that it's actually working again. How does this work? Okay, what we've got is we've got a hollow needle. Okay, similar to a hypodermic needle, not as sharp, because I wouldn't do that with a hypodermic needle, but I'm not about to puncture myself. That's not particularly comfortable, by the way, but I can do it. 32-hour stream. Why? What's the point? Anyway, and I think I'm surprised. I'd be surprised if she didn't do it standing up, otherwise she'd be falling asleep, I think. So it's a hollow needle down which the thread is pushed, and then it's threaded out through a tiny hole in the side, which is important. So what happens when... Can I zoom this in? Where's my camera control? That camera control hasn't popped up, so I can't zoom it in. Okay. Right, well, I shall do it without zooming in, and I shall have to have a look at why camera control hasn't popped up. Windows 10. So what happens is when this needle is pushed through a thread, through the backing material, effectively what it's doing is it's pushing the threads to one side. So there's quite a lot of, relatively speaking, friction. So as you push it through, what it does is it grasps, the friction grasps the thread, and as you push the needle down, it pulls the thread out from the needle and from the bobbin at the end, and the needle will only push down as far as the blue part there. So that kind of is like a depth gauge, and then when you pull the needle back, it leaves the thread behind on the other side of the fabric, creating a loop until it pops out at this side, and then the hole closes up basically, and it grabs, so the material then grabs the loop. You move over slightly and you repeat it, pushing the needle through, come back, creating another loop. So you've got two loops, and you just keep on doing that basically, but you do them a lot closer together. So that's what it is, fairly simply. Oh, it'll happen. Somebody will do a challenge next to do 48 hours, and it gets a bit silly, to be honest. Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, it is rather 3D block. I'm not quite sure how somebody thought about that, but they did. Right, I'm sculpting the edge of this bit I'm doing just here. So by that I mean I'm varying the depth, or varying the size of the loop on the other side, and to do that I've just got to be a little bit careful. So because the small loops are, I've just done something I shouldn't have done. The small loops are easily pulled out initially, so I'm just being a little bit careful. So what I'm doing is right against the loop I'm starting with little tiny loops, and then I create a slightly bigger loop next to it, and then a slightly bigger loop next to that. So I create sort of two steps or three sizes, and that sort of rounds off the edge of the picture quite nicely, and stops the edge looking really quite ragged. But it's a little bit awkward to just do, because working right up against the edge of the hoop here is actually quite difficult to get in there. So right. Good evening, Eddie Folguy. Welcome to the studio this evening. You did a 7-hour stream in the end last night. Blimey, 5 o'clock in the morning. That's quite... yeah, when he's opaque white paint, not very opaque. Right. I will turn it over in a little while, Giga Rich, just when I've finished doing the brown down here, just so you can see what the other side actually looks like, because this is the back side, the working side, not the actual display side. So I'm just doing the sides of the rails, so the sides of the rails are rusty. Well, that's what I've decided, so now this is kind of a browny, dirty browny colour. And whilst there should be any, I'm not going to do any sleepers either, so kind of a little bit unrealistic, I guess, but oh yeah, no, I know you said that yesterday, 3D bloke. You actually wanted to get it out of the way, and I kind of know what you mean. When I was doing the carving, it was a case of, if I don't finish this quickly, I'm going to leave it. Oh, no, actually, it's not as sharp as a needle. It is sharp, but it's not like an actual sort of sewing needle or something like that. I mean, I was tapping, as you saw me tapping it. I was tapping it quite hard. If I pushed hard enough, I could puncture my skin. You know, I'm not. It is sharp enough to do that, but it's certainly not something you do accidentally. You'd actually have to try to puncture your skin. Now you will see me at some point when I'm doing this. I start punching this through quite hard, and occasionally I will graze myself, just come down the edge of my finger, because what I'm doing is I'm supporting the material. So I'll put my fingers like that, if you like, and then the needle between them to support the material. The taller it is, the easier it is to punch through. And sometimes I'll get quite close, and you will hear me go ow, where it's kind of more, I haven't actually hurt myself, I've sort of almost hurt myself, if you know what you mean. If you know what I mean, you've kind of reacted to it by going ow, but you've not actually hurt yourself. But yeah, no problem. I don't mind people watching out and yeah, things like that. It's not a problem. No, I need to do the edge. I actually don't. Well, like I said, I don't actually enjoy sculpting the edge. I do, but I enjoy it more if I don't do it as close to the edge as I'm doing it here. So if I'd drawn an actual circle. But it's really hard when you draw a circle to keep it circular, because the material stretches and it doesn't always come out circular if you try and stick to a circular pattern. But so sometimes it's easier just to go around the inside of the loop, but it's quite an awkward thing to get into the inside of the loop. So But I have done a few of these where I've actually sort of sculpted the thread. So like I've got some where I've done cats, and some of the facial features by varying the length of the loop, you can sort of insert some of the facial features, you know, like the like the nostrils, for example. So if there's long loops around the nostrils, and then you actually make the nostrils sort of the smallest loop size you can, they indent, so it kind of adds to the detail that's there, that you basically couldn't get in any other way. So sculpting it can be fun, but it does take a lot of working out. And there's less margin for error, shall we say, with when you start sculpting it. And so things like, for example, this side of the locomotive here, I could have sculpted this out, because, you know, obviously this stands more on the other side anyway. It stands closer to you than the top surface and this bit of the engine, and the top here, of course, is rounded off. So I could have started with a small stitch along the top here and got longer as I go down the body. So you know, I started with a stitch depth, I say stitch, but I mean loop or what, punch, whatever you want to call it, depth of 1. Build up to sort of 3 to come down the body here. Then I'd have to come out to something like 4 or 5. But as you go towards the back of the engine, it's further away from you, so your perception of depth changes. So what would have been 1 at the top here and sort of 4 or 5 for the tender wants to be sort of at most probably 2. So you've then got to somehow get from 5 up here down to 2 down there without creating a solid step, because there isn't a step on the engine. And so it starts to get a bit difficult trying to work all that out. So the sort of things where I might use that sort of technique might be, for example, these buffers on the front. Stand those out by a couple of needle depths or loop depths, because they're nice and contained. They stand proud of what's behind them. The wheels, for example, are behind the hull of the engine, so if I'd done the hull of the engine at level 3, I could have done the wheels at level 2. Then they would have looked lower and sort of inside the cover. But if I'd done the wheels at level 2, then the rails and all the grass has to be done at level 2. And somewhere you've got to transition to level 3, which is up here, because the top of the engine, and you see it gets really messy. Yeah. Okay, that's a long time since I've done crochet. Blazing Chicken 11, good evening, welcome to the studio. Yeah, okay. I'll have to hold this needle in place, but that's the... It's a pity I cannot zoom this camera. But that's the piece. So far, which way is the right way? I'll actually have to... The only zoom I've got on the camera now is to actually physically move it. But that's what it looks like on the other side. So the loop, so it's a bit like a mini. Well, it is a miniature rug, because this is how rugs are made. Yep. Well, so will I, to be honest. Always like to see the back of pieces. Right. I switched to Windows 10, and it looks like Windows 10 hasn't started the control application. I suppose actually, because normally with the Logitech camera it fires up automatically, but actually I guess if I go down to here. Now this may or may not crash things. It didn't crash things. So I have a level of zoom. So let me put that over there. So okay, so I can zoom in, but I can't zoom out further than that because that's as far as it goes. But that's one I've just figured out an easy way, because I didn't do it earlier in the stream because I thought I can't actually recall where the control panel is that pops up, but then I've just remembered that it will pop up from within OBS if you say the right magic words to it. So I can zoom in. It's zoomed out as far as it will go at the moment. So actually, let's see if to zoom out, I actually have to physically move the camera backwards like that, adjusting this microphone snake as I go, and now I can zoom in like that. So okay, mine seems to be. It doesn't it tell you why it's not compatible? I know yesterday I updated the display drivers and the invitation vanished, but since I wasn't about to install it that way, I was going to just do the straight download anyway. It didn't bother me too much. Kind of surprised it's not. Maybe it doesn't have a driver that it needs, AD. I think if you start the update, it does tell you if there's any incompatible programs. And I know I got confused. I've done it twice now on two different machines. I did it on a sacrificial machine first, and then my own machine here. And before it starts the actual update, one of the things it says to you is after the update, you're going to need to the language is going to change basically. You're going to need to reinstall a language pack. And I'm thinking, even the second time, I'm thinking, but I didn't install a language pack in the first place. Or is this another one where it thinks UK English is different to American English, which of course it is. But it's been alright both times. But it was one of those things, oh god, am I going to have to find a language pack? I think you can still update even if it's not compatible, but they won't guarantee it'll work, of course. It may well be something like a third-party update, so like a screen driver, for example, or a sound driver, or just something like that, which isn't supplied by Microsoft, and therefore the updates will be up to date, but the it still won't be compatible because it it doesn't have the right version of, or Microsoft don't have a driver for a particular thing. So that may well be the reason that you're getting that message. You'd have to reinstall your current operating system in order to be able to upgrade to get Windows 10 free, because if you don't upgrade one, you have to buy it. say you kind of want to upgrade, create a boot installation disk, note down your Windows key, and then you can blow it away and build it and put the same key in, and it'll self-authorize. That sounds quite drastic. I didn't have not had any problems either with the Windows tray icon thing that popped up, or even the actual Windows 10 installer, which I downloaded and ran. Done that twice now, and it installed quite quickly as well. Even on an old slow machine we've got an i5 2.2 gig. It's always been quite slow. The disk is slow more than anything. That took about 40 minutes to do the update, and on mine, which is a 2.7 i7 with an SSD and things, that took about 20 minutes to do the update to Windows 10. So itself was quite fast. The only problem I had, and I had it with both machines, is I use a Windows Home Server for backup, and in both cases the backup wouldn't connect, and it was just ultimately all I did was uninstall and reinstall the connector for it, and it popped up first time. So I've been quite surprised. The only thing that's complained has been the antivirus, because it can't install an add-on for Windows Edge, because they don't allow add-ons at the moment. I'm only going to take this brown so far back, probably just to in front of the tender, because of course I've got to remember it's something like about 30 feet backwards at this point, so perspective comes into it. I'll stop it there. As I was saying at the start of the stream, the only thing that about the Windows 10 though, there's a couple of things that one thing I sort of don't like about it, and one thing which, well, two things I don't like. I don't actually care particularly much for the start menu, at least at the moment, unless I can find it can do more than it's currently doing. I actually prefer I quite like the Windows 8 start menu, because it was easy to see everything, because it was just so big basically. But the Windows 7 was fine as well. Not that keen on the Windows 8 one as it is out of the box, which means that I don't know quite how customizable it is, with things like the live tiles which are on the right hand side. If I can't put my own applications on the right hand side, or somehow get favourite stuff clustered near the top, then I'll probably decide that I don't like the start menu. And the other thing is well, speech recognition, same problem as you have with lots of speech recognition, where it doesn't quite recognise what you're saying. It's done a reasonable job, but just certain things, like I was saying at the start, things like well, I play Factorio, So I say start Factorio, and it doesn't recognise us. It recognises me as having said Factoria instead of Factorio. And so, because there isn't a program called Factoria on my machine, it starts the web browser up, but then it does a search for start Factoria, which is a bit weird, and I can't get it to recognise me saying Factorio. It keeps overriding it as that. And then there's other odd ones like well, OBS, for example. It always insists I've said LBS. Alright. But then, of course, OBS isn't OBS. OBS is Open Broadcaster Software, and that's the application name. So when you say start OBS, it goes, throws it at the browser. You have to say start Open Broadcaster Software to get it to do it. And of course, I don't know all the names of all the applications. Yeah, start that thing with the icon with a key on it, you know. Yeah, update the update to do the updates for the updates. Yeah. It's when it says that, and then it says your update program is out of date, is too old to be updated. You get a problem. No problem, Giggy Rich. It'd be nice to see what you're drawing at the end of it, if it's safe for family viewing, that is. And you want to show us as well. If you don't want to, that's alright. Actually, I should check I've got no updates to do on this latest one. But overall, quite pleased with it. Microsoft Edge, the new browser's working quite well, actually. And it does seem somewhat faster. Yeah. Ignoring benchmarks and stuff, in actual operation it seems quite faster. It's run all the sites I usually go to so far without any problem, and I know on the sacrificial machine it's running things like the Daily Mail website, which my wife looks at from time to time, which is a page which is about 6 miles long and stuffed full of adverts and things, but it handled that quite well as well, even on the old machine with quite a speed. So looks like they've done something good with that thing. I haven't tried Minecraft yet, so that might fail. I know Factorio works, and of course it's fairly obvious that OBS is working. Yeah, no, I understand. It's a bit of a gimmick to start with. I mean, certain things it is quite nice in a way, and especially if you do let it sit there with an open mic, so you can just call up Katana and stuff like that, and it's like anything else. I mean, I've got voice recognition in the car, and you have to learn what to say, but sometimes for certain things it can be quite useful, especially things that you can't find. I know when I did the sacrificial machine, I was looking for the microphone settings, for example. I couldn't find the thing, so I just asked it for the microphone settings, and it popped up the right thing. So it was it did prove useful for that. And I can potentially see if you're going to end up having to look through a whole load of menus trying to find something, then yeah, it could be useful. But for a desktop PC, bit of a gimmick really. I did have a problem getting it to use my Rode mic rather than the Logitech mic, because this one's actually called a microphone. That one's just a line input. It wasn't very keen on wanting to use the other microphone, but that took a bit of time. NGX Slangster, why what? But otherwise, welcome to the studio. Yeah, learn to sit back, Fear Reaper. It's where's my dark grey? There we go. Something I do quite a bit. I'm doing it now over this, is leaning forward. You've got to learn to sort of sit back and work relaxed. With some of the stuff like the carving, I kind of have to do because it's closer to me. But with with this other pyrography, I too have a tendency to sit right over the work, and my back does ache. So you got to learn to sit back and relax. Yeah, that's true. If it's been thrown at the printer like at 1,000 dots per inch and told to print, told to print an inch, then the printer will print an inch and discard most of the dots. So if you sort of say print 2 inches, it's still printing at 500 dots per inch, which is, I think commercial printing is 300 sort of ish, but your computer screen's only about 72 dots per inch, somewhere around there. And quite a lot of drivers will do things like anti-aliasing as well for lines and stuff. One, two, three. Right, I've got the dark grey out because I'm going to do some smoke. So the next thing I've got to decide is whether this is moving or whether it's static, because that's the key thing. If it's static, the smoke will tend to go straight up. If it's moving, of course, it's going to come down here, and if it's moving, I need to put steam in as well, which is white rather than grey, because the grey and black is smoke from the firebox, with the white is steam from the cylinders after it's been used. So it's going to kind of look more interesting to have the stuff come across this way rather than just sort of cloud up there. So I think we'll probably do it sort of moving a little bit type of thing. So we've got, I thought it was windy, we got some of the smoke coming across here, and we'll put a bit of white in as well for steam. That'd be cool to see, Fear Reaper. I'd love to, sorry, 3D Bloke, I'd love to see you actually do some paperwork. Paperwork. Dear. Paperwork's what I need to do. Right, so I don't actually know whether steam comes out the front or the back. Oh, the smoke comes out the front or the back of the chimney. I'm not quite sure where the steam gets injected, because the smoke has come all the way from the firebox at the back through and out the top, and the steam which gets ejected out the same way actually does what an airbrush does. As it squirts steam out the top, it draws the smoke and the heat down the length of the engine to come out the top there, which sort of superheats the air and the water and the boiler. Yeah, I don't know. Let's do something. Actually, let me draw something in. Draw in sort of. Yeah, something sort of fairly sort of fluffy edged. We'll put some white in and around it. I think I'll do sort of grey, sort of this dark grey at the bottom. I've got some other grey around here. Blue grey. No, I won't bother. So I might put some of this dark grey in. Put some of the lighter grey around it. And the white. Where's the white gone? There it is. And then white, sort of maybe white on the top here. So we'll do sort of the darker stuff near the bottom, and surround it with the lighter grey, and then white on the top for steam. Don't like the fact that keeps reminding me about the fact that one of my other machines has not had a backup. I know it's not had a backup. You don't need to keep reminding me. Right. Are those the same pictures you showed me before with like the pistol and the red eyes, Fear Reaper, I think? That's pulling out. It's catching somewhere, is this? Yeah. Doing it again. the thread catches on anything, what it does is it pulls out the loops as you put in them in, so you're sort of wasting your time. Nope, I'm doing it again. What is up with this? Stop catching on whatever it is you're catching on. If this does it again, I'm going to change tools. Were you meaning there, had he done it in Illustrator 3D block, or was he an illustrator? Okay. Birthday wishes. Maybe he'll give you a present, 3D bloke. That used to be a thing when I, relatively speaking, when I started working, having left school. The place where I started working, if it was your birthday, you had to buy the cakes and things, and you were expected to do so. Not the other people that, they weren't giving you the cakes, you had to buy them cakes. Right. Okay, I didn't actually intend to go that low down, but never mind, we'll right, let's get rid of these loops before I get caught in them. Yeah. Okay. And of course, one of the first questions that they always ask people that started working there was, "When's your birthday?" And that wasn't so they could buy you things. It was so that they knew when they were going to get the free cake and stuff, cream cakes and stuff. Because it always had to be sort of fancy cream cakes, or fancy cakes, shall we say? Not just sort of a packet of biscuits. I put the outline around this just so that I predefined where I wanted to go. So as I was sort of just going backwards and forwards, I didn't have to think, where do I want this to stop? Hmm. Possibly, yeah. It's not. I guess it's not something I've actually thought about. It as to. Oh bugger! Right, I'm changing this needle. See if the other one does it. Because I have two of them. Victorian though. I can't. Well, not that I know that much about Victoriana. Don't know what sort of thing they would have, what sort of custom in Victorian times would have been translated into buying the cakes. There's lots of, I suppose there's lots of odd things like that have just come up, you know, odd sort of rituals or stuff like that which people do and you just no idea where they've come from originally. I mean, it's like some of the you know, regional foods, you know, like Devon is clotted cream. Who thought of taking clotted cream, or even creating it in the first place, and sticking it on a scone or however you want to pronounce it. You know, Yorkshire puddings. How did they came about? And just odd things like that. You know, black pudding. Jellied eels, yeah, all sorts of actually, for some reason, that just reminded me of the thing that says, if you find a good fish and chip shop out of Yorkshire, you've just found yourself a Yorkshireman who's moved. Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, there's all. I mean, some of the sort of odd foods, and I'm guessing things like jellied eels probably is one of them. You can understand that it was actually a means to preserve the food, although and people therefore ate it in its preserved form. But I mean, who thought of using whatever the jelly is made out of to preserve it in the first place? Yeah, it's like you know, smoked salmon or any smoked fish, for example. It's not cooked, but it's not raw. You know, it's preserved. But yet, who the hell thought of hanging these things up in a chimney, lighting a fire underneath, and piling wood chippings on top of the fire, so it creates smoke? It works, but really just can't imagine how that came about. And sort of these days, in modern times, you could almost imagine sort of a research lab somewhere, you know, a food research lab or something, just trying these things out, and you know, because they understand what cooking means, and so you know, whether you cook with heat or you cook with liquid nitrogen, or you cook with a microwave, it's cooking. Yeah? So you can come out with different ways of cooking things, but and I can kind of understand maybe how cooking came apart. You know, the caveman fire, if you like, and some meat got dropped in the fire or thrown in the fire, and it started to smell nice, so somebody tasted it. You can kind of understand that. But some of the other things. Yeah, actually, it's Marmite's an odd one, isn't it? I mean, there's the love it or hate it thing, but I don't particularly care for Marmite. Okay, I can eat it, but I don't particularly care for it. But you can get Marmite crisps, and you can actually get, I think it's cashew nuts or some sort of nut which is coated with a Marmite type coating, and I absolutely love those. Marmite, I'm a Bovril person. Beef extract rather than yeast extract, and but yeah, I kind of know what you mean. Does it taste terrible? No, it's some people love it, some people hate it. Same as you know, Marmite and Bovril. Usually people tend to like one and not the other for some reason. There's, don't quite know how to describe the taste, to be honest, but I don't. I say prefer Bovril, not so much the Marmite, but yeah, I mean, things. One of the war things that came about because of the war was because of the lack of sugar. Carrots got used, so carrot cake is actually a product of the war because carrots contain a lot of natural sugar. So by putting them in a cake, they didn't need to put sugar into the cake mix. And when you're eating it, it doesn't taste like vegetable. It's generally speaking sort of grated or very finely chopped, but I love carrot cake. Things like Yorkshire pudding didn't come about because of the war. I think they've been around for a long time before that, but you know, things like that came about for two sorts of reasons. One was to use up gravy, but the second was to stop you being hungry. If you ate lots of Yorkshire pudding, for example, which was really cheap to make, relatively speaking, you didn't eat the expensive meat because you weren't hungry anymore. So your meat portion of your main course was a lot reduced, and that's where things like the soup courses come from. The intention of the soup course is to satisfy your hunger so that you don't eat the expensive main course. I used to like malt extract as a kid. I've not had any for a long time. I used to other people would hate that, and yet I would quite happily have spoonfuls of the things. Tell you what, you might also remember 3D bloat cod liver oil tablets. Used to have those as a kid, and I kind of enjoyed those as well. It's probably the capsule bit of it more than anything else, because you sort of instead of swallowing it, I kind of used to sort of let it dissolve so that it kind of burst open. But now again, that's probably the similar reason why these days I quite like cod liver, not cod liver, olive oil. Which, in case you don't know, if you want to taste, and you are encouraged, shall we say, to taste olive oil, if you're looking for a good quality oil and you get the chance to taste them, then you literally taste the oil itself. Usually you do it on bread. Well, actually, normally you do it on whatever is the bread of the country that the oil is coming from. So a lot of olive oil, for example, which comes from Greece, you'd actually taste it on either on pita bread or on sort of really thick farmhouse type bread. Malt extract, yeah. I don't know. I keep thinking I'll have to. I don't know if they still make it or it's still available. I'll have to get some just the nostalgia, if nothing else. I might absolutely hate it again. Yorkshire pudding, a delicious piece of. Indeed, it is. Yes. Really hard to cook well, though. A really hot oven, really hot pan, smoking hot oil, and a bit of luck. If you get one, well, and then with gravy. Yeah, especially if you get the big sort of, or make the big sort of 3-4 inch diameter big puddings with the great big sides on. It's almost like a soup bowl, and fill that with onion gravy, and then sort of mop most of the gravy out with something like bread before you actually eat the Yorkshire pudding itself. Otherwise you end up with gravy all over the table, because generally you can get more in a Yorkshire pudding than will fit on your plate. It does. I can kind of understand that, Captain Derby, yeah. Mind you, I mean, you can almost use the Yorkshire pudding, certainly sort of put the sliced roast beef in the bottom of a Yorkshire pudding with onion gravy over the top, then it's almost a dinner plate in its own right. Yeah, going on about Yorkshire pudding, but I tend to like spicy foods myself, so, but not spicy foods, but not hot spice. So I like curries, for example. I will tend to have something like a korma, something which is lightly spiced, shall we say, or even tandoori, something like that. Stuff like vindaloo, forget it. Too hot, can't taste it, what's the point? But yeah, stew inside a bit Yorkshire pudding, yeah it is. You got to make sure the Yorkshire's really cooked properly. It can't be soggy, otherwise it sort of melts. But yeah, camping. I'm surprised you managed to get your good Yorkshire puddings done while you're out camping. Because I'm assuming it isn't the sort of camping where you've got a full-blown gas stove or a gas oven, but maybe it was. And there's a lot of stuff which eaten outside is completely different. I used to go fishing in Scottish Loch, the Sea Loch, and we'd catch mackerel and cod and bring it back, and you'd be able to eat it within about an hour. of having caught it. You know, wrap it in foil with some butter and on a barbecue, so you sort of oven cooked, if you see what I mean. And that's absolutely fantastic taste. Completely different to the stuff you buy in a supermarket or fishmongers, just mainly because it's so fresh and you're eating outside. There's something about eating outside. I've never had jerk chicken, so it's I don't actually even know what it is, to be honest. Sounds interesting, but okay. That explains the the cooking environment. Right, let's do some silver grey for around the bottom, just sort of act as a slightly different variation on colour. Actually, I'm not, because I've just seen what time it is. It's 10:20, so I'm not going to put the silver on. We're going to say that's kind of it for. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Let's tip that camera up like that, and I can work out which way to do it and hold it further back. So, a lot of fiddly stuff. Doing the rails was quite fiddly. Having to stop and start to go in between each of the wheels and what have you. So we seem to, mind you, it's only been, it's almost 2-hour stream. So I've got the and the smoke at the top, but should be tomorrow. White, so grey across the bottom and maybe a bit of white in there, but a white across the top for steam, and then sky blue, and some green grass, dark grass, sort of is the shadow, and then a couple of shades of grass at the bottom. You're after the base. I'm probably going to be building some factories. Although I should do some more work on my website, but can't be bothered at the moment. That's another one of those things I've done. I've spent about 2 or 3 weeks doing some work on it, and now I just want to rest, do something different for a while. Now that blue, let's say the white on the top, sort of is not looking as bad as it did before. So I'm guessing now once we put some the blue sky in, that's going to look less white as well. But anyway, it's coming along quite nicely. It's the big areas next, really. So how long have we been doing now? So we've done 7 days, 14 hours. This one's taken a bit longer than the other locomotive. The other one was about 11 hours. So mind you, I was going to say I do have a tendency to stop when I'm talking, so you have to redesign. Have you ever made yours live, actually? Yeah, 3D block. Make you a sweater. No, not unless you want to pay a lot of money for it. For knitting, I would charge about £15 an hour. And I'm not a very fast knitter, so it's probably a few £100 for a sweater. Yeah. I've had to. I'm taking the easy way out though with Mindfree. I'm not doing a full design. I'm just using a CMS. Yeah. I say I'm kind of cheating using a CMS, so I kind of only really need to write the text and throw the pictures in there. Taking the easy way out of it, but we'll get there in the end. Anyway, guys, 1 hour 53, almost 2 hours of streaming. So it's not been a short stream, just a slightly delayed one. Thank you all for watching. Yeah, I've been playing with Joomla. Little bit frustrating. Little bit frustrating. You probably find it a little bit frustrating as well, 3D bloke, because you're familiar with what you can do in HTML and script. But it's worth looking at. Does make life easier. And the add-ons as well that you can do just to make life easier. But as I was about to say, thank you all for watching. It has been great fun and interesting. Now get to play with Windows 10 a little bit more. So if there's anybody that's watching that Joomla 3 is better than 2. So makes you swear, because you know what you could do and it's not letting you, which is the painful bit for people like yourself that know how to do it. But I'm kind of worked the other way around. Yeah, there's others, CMS, but the CMS is there for people that don't really know. WordPress. Yeah, WordPress looked great for blog stuff, but not so good for sort of page-based stuff. But there are a few others out there, but they kind of all work the same way. So I know I used to be a Windows programmer, so when I sort of doing things in VBA, for example, that I know Windows is sending the messages that I want to get hold of, but VBA will not let you do it. Won't give you them, and not unless you start getting right down into sort of system calls and stuff, and then that gets really complicated really fast, and it gets really frustrating because you go, all I want is that message, give me that, I can do what I want. But no, you've got to start having to work your way around it and stuff like that. It gets really bad. But anyway, save Joomla for tomorrow night and talk about Joomla tomorrow. So if there's anybody that's watching that isn't following and might want to talk about Joomla as well, then I obviously would appreciate it if you push the follow button and join us on another stream. If you don't feel like doing that and would just like to be notified when I go live, at Zerganart for Twitter. It'll be on the end plate, but it's also below the stream window as well. On the other hand, if you just want to try and catch me tomorrow, which I should be streaming tomorrow, but I do have a family event for most of the day, so I'm expecting to be able to stream, but it may be a little bit delayed. But generally speaking, I start around 8 PM UK time, 1900 hours GMT, or approximately 2.5 hours ago in whatever country you're in. Take a look at your clock, subtract 2.5 hours. That was about 8 o'clock. That's roughly when I start each night. Thank you all, everybody in chat, everybody watching. See you again tomorrow. Bye bye.